all of the different types of viewpoints and perspectives and insights that they have to offer, taken together as a collection, would give anybody reading the book, whether they're an aspiring professional dancer or not, a really colorful and informative and, quite inspiring and motivating views of their own options and choices they might make for themselves. And it might help them move forward in their own lives and careers. With that comfort of knowing that there are so many different ways to do it.
I'm Caitlin, a former professional ballerina turned dance educator and career mentor, and this is the Brainy Ballerina Podcast. I am here for the aspiring professional ballerina who wants to learn what it really takes to build a smart and sustainable career in the dance industry. I'm peeling back the curtain of the professional dance world with open and honest conversations about the realities of becoming a professional dancer. Come along to gain the knowledge and inspiration you need to succeed in a dance career on your terms. Hello and welcome to the Brainy Ballerina Podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Sloan, and I am joined today by Gavin Larsen and Gene Schiavone. Gavin is a former professional dancer who is now a dance writer, teacher, and author. Gene was a staff photographer for American Ballet Theater for 2 decades, in addition to providing performance and studio photography for major companies and dancers all around the world. Gavin and Gene have collaborated on a book of photographs and essays titled Infinite Steps, 33 Dancers and Their Lives of Ballet, featuring several notable dancers that Gene worked with throughout his career. Thank you so much, Gavin and Gene, for joining me today to talk about this book. I loved reading it. I loved looking at the photographs. I loved everything about it. I am curious, how did the two of you first meet? And at what point did you realize that this might become a creative partnership?
Do you want to kick that off, Gene?
We met through our publisher. I had this concept for the book and realized at some point that I was just a photographer. I was not a writer. So I needed to find a way to put the stories with the photographs. Originally I thought that I'd be able to do it myself. Then I thought, well, I'd work with the dancers. Ultimately, it wasn't going to work with them spending their time trying to write their own stories. I didn't think that would come out right. I talked to the publisher and I said, I probably need to collaborate with somebody to do this. And I had read Gavin's book somewhere along the line. I said, this is pretty amazing in the sense that she really conveyed what it was like to be a dancer. That kind of prompted me to, look closely at it. But then our publisher met with Gavin and said, I have this fellow who's thinking about a project that you might be good for, and suggested that we get together. So that's kind of how it came about.
Yes, someone from our publisher, University Press of Florida, we had coffee actually one day, and she said, this dancer photographer, have you ever heard of Gene Schiavone? And actually the name Gene, I don't think I've told you this, but I was like, no, I'm not sure I have. And then I was like, that name sort of sounds familiar. And then I realized later it's because I've seen your name in captions of photographs all over. And she described the project and I was immediately like, oh yeah, sign me up. I mean, this is so cool. I would love to do this. It sounds great. And so then Gene and I talked not long after, and that was it. We just got started right away.
We didn't get started right away. We started talking a lot.
Yes, that's true.
We had a lot of conversations just to kind of understand where each other was coming from and to get to know each other. I mean, it was important that we had some knowledge of what we were thinking before we started. So that was kind of the first step, I think.
Yeah, it's true. As we had more and more conversations and we batted around different ideas about how the book could take shape and what it could look like. I mean, lots of different iterations of format and just design and what it would include and what it would mean, really. I think a lot of our conversations were trying to distill down, what is this book going to really mean? What's it going to really be about? And through that process, we sort of chiseled away at this general concept and honed down in on what it actually did become. Gene suggested that we start just by doing like a test dancer interview. And so that was Olivia Yoke. He suggested Olivia as a good person to be the first dancer, as just sort of an experiment almost to see what it would be like when I talked to her and then tried to write down her story. And I think after we did that one, we both looked at it and we thought about it, and that helped us even further kind of shape the way the rest of the book was going to go.
How do you feel that your different backgrounds, Gavin as a dancer and Gene as a photographer, helped shape the way the project took form? Did you each have specific insight that the other one maybe hadn't thought of based on your particular backgrounds?
We're coming from really different perspectives here. I mean, I was just an observer, kind of on the outside of the dance world looking in. And Gavin had the inside knowledge. I mean, she had gone through it. So, it's always to have a photograph, but you need some depth to the photograph. I mean, a photograph is just two-dimensional. It's just a flat piece of paper. We wanted to tell the story of the dancer in the photograph because we thought that was the important part. Yeah, you can look at the picture, but my concept has always been, I want to tell stories. To put the words with the photograph really gave it depth. I thought that was an important aspect of it.
And when I was looking at the different photographs that Gene sent me, which was a big part of our process, was Gene just sent me so many of his photos, like all these different dancers. And each time he would send me a picture, a group of pictures, they were accompanied by his stories about them, like his remembrances of what it was like working with them, what he knew about them, what the dancer had shared with him. And that alone really colored the way I looked at the photographs. And I thought, this is what I want to do for readers of the book. I want to deepen their understanding, their insight of that photograph through some revelations about what's going on in their mind, what was going on in their mind, what's their motivation, what's their perspective. All of these amazing individuals that Gene has worked with from like such diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and types of experiences they had, age range, types of careers, geographical locations. It was like so colorful and just rich, lots and lots of really rich material. So, I brought to it my insider knowledge of having been a professional dancer myself. And so I have an understanding, like a built-in understanding of all of these dancers' lives, even if the specifics of their lives differed a lot from mine. I could still understand kind of their reason for being. That enabled me, I think, to like jump in even further right off the bat into getting to know them and help reveal their stories with that same kind of richness.
Mm-hmm. And Gene, just reading your bio and reading this book, it became very apparent that the background stories and the lives of the dancers was really important to you as a photographer. And I thought your story of getting started as a photographer was very interesting. Could you share that for us?
From an early age, I mean, I have pictures I'd taken when I was 10 years old. I was always into photography as a hobby, probably more than a hobby, but just as a particular interest to me when I was young. And I always wanted the pictures to tell stories. I mean, I traveled cross country a number of times and people would say, show me the photographs. And I'm saying, well, I could have taken a picture of a mountain, but it would just be a picture of a mountain you can see any place. But if you put a person in that picture, then you have a story. So I always wanted to tell stories. At one point, my wife was involved with American Ballet Theater, and we had the studio company performing in Hartford, Connecticut, not far from our house. So this was in 2002, maybe. And we had them over our home, and I had a studio at the house. So I started taking some photographs of them. And I knew nothing about ballet. I had no interest in ballet. It was something my wife was interested in. But I got to meet some of these dancers. It was very interesting speaking with them. And then I went to a rehearsal, and I watched them perform. And it intrigued me a little bit. So at some point, John Meehan, who ran the studio company at that point, ABT Studio Company, he asked me, or I asked him if I could take some photos of the rehearsal. He said, sure, because he knew my wife. So I did that. And I thought, boy, this is really an interesting thing to photograph. And I went back and I shot the performance. The photos were terrible. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing with the lighting. Who could figure this stuff out right away? But they invited me to work with them. So I spent some time with them. Actually, I toured with them for 2 years because there was never any money in the budget for the studio company. Everything went to the main company. And, in the arts, there's never a budget. There's never any money available. So I was retired at that point, and I worked with them for a couple of years. And I kind of developed a knowledge of ballet a little bit and a knowledge of advancing photography and how to do that, these specific lighting conditions. And that's kind of how it started. From there, I went to the main company after a couple of years of kind of learning the craft. From ABT, after a couple of years, I was invited to Boston Ballet, and I photographed them for 15 years. And then I started working with other companies, and that's kind of how I got into it.
So you have such a huge number of photos from all of your years when you were trying to choose 33 dancers to make it into the book. How did you go about that task?
It began with what I saw as the purpose of the book. I mean, my original concept was that I would work in the studio with a lot of students. It was always the mothers that brought them in. And it's mostly the mothers that brought their daughters in for audition photos, the usual stuff you need to get started. And they came to me because the thinking was, well, you're photographing all these famous ballet dancers that my daughter or my less likely with the sons, because guys don't care much about photos. The mothers seem to be more interested in their daughters. So I had a studio and people would make appointments and they come in, we do studio sessions. But there's always this underlying question, what do you think I should do next? Should she go take coaching? Should she go to summer intensives? Should she do competitions? And I never had the answers. I was just a guy that took pictures. But there was always this underlying need for what do we do? I mean, if you're in the Russian system, it's pretty simple. You go to school at 8 years old and your path is laid out for you and you just follow that and everybody goes the same way. But here you have all these choices to make. So the thought was that from years ago, that if there could be one source or some source that people would go to. Now, when I was working with the studio company, I found this book, Dance's Life, by Stephen Franklin. It was written in the 70s, and it was about a year in American Ballet Theater. And I read that book, and I thought this is a good guide for students coming in, because it'll tell you what to expect in some ways going into professional ballet. And there was an out-of-print book, but I would find those books online, and I order them when I could, and I would give them to the dancers I work with. And when these kids came in the studio to work, I would always give them a copy of the book. I said, this is something to give you some basis of what you're in for or what to look forward to. So when we can see this book, I thought the purpose should be the same. This is something that can give you kind of a roadmap in terms of where you might want to go or choices that have been made by other people. And maybe this will help you in your path in terms of progressing through the ballet industry, I guess you call it, because it really is an industry. I want the central repository for ballet guidance.
And in order to provide that in an encompassing way, we decided early on that the group of dancers needed to be broad spectrum and not just famous people or, just current professionals, but dancers who are at very different points all throughout the whole range of a career or a life in dance as a dancer, because some of them are not dancing professionally. Some did or have stopped, some are just getting started. And so all of the different types of viewpoints and perspectives and insights that they have to offer, taken together as a collection, would give anybody reading the book, whether they're an aspiring professional dancer or not, a really colorful and informative and, quite inspiring and motivating views of their own options and choices they might make for themselves. And it might help them move forward in their own lives and careers. With that comfort of knowing that there are so many different ways to do it. And that all these other people have faced all of their same questions and problems and felt their same joys and triumphs and, made unorthodox, unexpected choices and pathways.
Yeah, reading about all these huge stars in the ballet world and all of the things they went through and realizing that we all have rejection and struggles was really powerful.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when I was, when we finally did finish it and I was like looking through all of them and all of the ones that we collected, our collection of dancers, so to speak. And I was really struck by how just incredibly beautiful it is. It's really just like a distillation of life. For myself, I think of it as like a collection of 33 ways to live an examined life, but through the lens of dance, because of the things that these dancers face throughout their careers and lives and continue to face are really the same things that you face outside of dance, but the ways that they have encountered them with their toolkit of the dancer's mentality could be really illustrative and informative for anybody. I mean, it really has been for me personally, honestly.
The other thing that was interesting to me over the years, I photographed a lot of dances over an extended period of time. One of the girls in the book, I photographed her for the first time at 10 years old, which is strange because when I got calls from parents about children that young, I would say, no, they really need to be a little further along. But for some reason, I was convinced that, or her mother convinced me that I should take the time to work with this girl. So I photographed her at 10. I think I photographed her at 12, and then I photographed her a little later. So when I look at the dancers in the book, even on a professional level, I mean, I photographed them over a number of years. It was interesting to see the progression where they achieved, where they had failures, or not failures, but not so great moments, or had things that they had to really work through. For me, it was interesting to see these stories that took place over some period of time and not just once and done kind of thing. Olivia Gavin was speaking about, I mean, I only photographed her once now. We've never met. It was just strange that I happened to notice her photograph, one of her pictures, and I sent it to her, not knowing if it was really her. And turned out it was. And it turned out that I had purchased a pair of her shoes, by coincidence in the lobby at the theater that day. And that kind of came together. But, we've never met. But it was kind of strange the way it came together.
Yeah, that was a cool story. Let's pause this episode so I can tell you about one of my favorite new resources for dancers, the Chronicle Studio app. Chronicle Studio is designed to strengthen dancers from the inside out with classical ballet classes you can take from anywhere, technique tutorials, and deep dives into Allegro vocabulary and execution. The app also includes a tips and tricks section, plus a comprehensive list of resources to help you grow as a dancer. One of my favorite elements of the app is the community section, where you can connect with other dancers with the same drive and passion for ballet. Right now, founder Elizabeth Troxler is inviting you to become a founding member of the Chronicle Studio app. If you're a dancer or teacher willing to share honest feedback to help grow the app with the content you love, now is the time to get involved. Head to the link in my show notes to download the Chronicle Studio app and have everything you need to build stronger, smarter dancers right at your fingertips. Gavin, how do you feel that your career as a professional dancer influences the way that you approach writing about other dancers' lives? You wrote your incredible memoir, but you've also written for many different publications, magazines, and now this book and write about other dancers' journeys. How do you approach that?
I mean, I think it's impossible to kind of shed my own experience, my own lens completely. So when I was talking to each of these dancers and interviewing them, having conversations with them, I mean, I did filter it through like my own understanding, my own memories and experiences of being a dancer. Even so, I feel like that enables me to, like I said before, like already connect with them. Like we just immediately have a connection, every single one of them. All dancers do. I mean, you know that as a dancer yourself, you just immediately have this bond because no matter if you've never met before or not, you just understand what you're doing and what you've been through and what you're doing and why you're doing it and kind of like what makes you tick. So that enabled us to click right away. And I think it also made them trust me. They all opened up really, really wide and were very vulnerable and very forthright. I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, I don't want to say I was expecting people to be, reserved, but I was really humbled and excited too at how open everybody was and how willing they were to let me know all sorts of things. I mean, I didn't even have to do much questioning. Honestly, like I would start out by showing them the pictures that Gene had taken of them, or Gene had usually sent them in advance. And we say, let's talk about that one. So take me back, what were you dancing that day? Where were you in your career? Where were you in your life? Do you remember that specific moment? Like what was going on in your head? How were you feeling? How did you feel afterwards? And that usually just opened up the gates. And they just got rolling. I just am so curious about other people and other people's lives. So I love interviewing people because I always have endless questions. And I'd much rather talk to other people about themselves than about myself. So listening to them talk, and then I have more questions about this and that. And yeah, I mean, I think they trusted me and they understood where I was coming from. They knew we were of the same world. They knew I understood them. So I was able to, when I went to write up their stories, able to do it with a real sort of feeling of simpatico and understanding of how they wanted the world to understand them. Yeah, it was just so interesting. My gosh, this process, so fascinating because each of these dancers is obviously so many similarities, but everyone is an individual and their unique, very specific, unique perspective and ideas, opinions, really, really interesting.
Gene, what would you say after being a photographer for so many years? What do you feel photography can capture about dancers that sometimes the words can't? Because I feel like this book was so special, pairing both together to give us this complete picture. But what do you feel like the photographs bring specifically?
Well, the photographs bring one moment in time, meaning that it appears and then it's gone. So when you look deep into a photograph, you can kind of sense in many ways how that dancer is feeling by the expression and the tension in the body. As an audience member, you never get to see that because you're just going through it. You're just passing through that moment. But when you stop and you analyze it, you see the stress and you see the commitment within the dancer. I mean, I think that's a really important aspect of it that goes unseen. You can actually study it and understand what's going on, or try to understand. You never really understand, but you have some sense of what this person is feeling and what they're trying to convey to the audience, which is really, the important aspect of dance is what you're communicating to the audience. And I think you can see that in the photograph where you watch the performance, it's all one motion and you can't pull out those aspects of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think dance photography is such an important and really, really unique art form in itself. Just a gorgeous subset of the photography profession and, the art of photography in particular, because of exactly what Gene said. Ballet and, dance is like continual motion, and the ability to capture split seconds, snapshots like that, fragments of the motion, they just tell you so much as you look at those pictures. So many different things that you can't get from a performance or you miss in a live performance. It's almost like you can see their thoughts and, the tension in the body, of course, and the ease. And you really see the portrait of the person in addition to the movement that they're doing when they perform. And I think that might be also why these essays with the photographs, they seem to jive so well, because the essays are providing the flow in a way for these still captured moments. It's just a really interesting kind of pairing.
And ballet performance, live performance can be so fleeting.
Right.
You're there and you experience the moment and then it's over. Written word photography endures, can last forever. So preserving these memories for the dancers you worked with and for us as readers to enjoy is so special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, someone's going to see performances to then have the chance to look at the photographs and read these essays will only make them love the performances more and appreciate them more and understand them better and want to see even more of it for exactly that reason. It's just a way to sort of say, wait, stop, hold on, let me hang on to this for a second and study it. And the more you can study something, the more you know about it, and then the more you're interested in it. I love doing this.
If you're enjoying this episode, then you're going to love the Brainy Ballerina Book Club. I have been an avid reader for as long as I can remember. I am fascinated by other stories, and I am always applying the lessons I learn in books to my own life, both personally and professionally. What started out as sharing my currently reading list on Instagram stories has since grown into a full-fledged book club with hundreds of members. Each month, we dive into a new story thoughtfully chosen to inspire and challenge us with original ideas and experiences. Whether you are an avid reader or looking to get into the habit, the Brainy Ballerina Book Club welcomes you with open arms. It's free to join and there is no catch. Just a community of dance lovers who are eager to expand our knowledge, feed our souls, and make meaningful connections. Head on over to the show notes to join the book club today. The title really emphasizes the dancers' lives in ballet. What do you want the readers to this book to understand about the dancers as people?
I have so many things. I mean, there were so many themes that emerged across these 33 individuals through their narratives that they relayed to me. Of course, understandably and expectedly, their intense passion for what they do was prominent, of course. What was beautifully revealed to me was that it's not just that they're passionate about what they do, but that sense of purpose is what fuels that passion and that ironclad commitment to dance. It's that sense of purpose that propels them through life and enables them to weather all of the storms and also to not succumb to kind of the giddiness of the highs. to not only be seeking the high of a performance over and over and over again. It's that sense of purpose and that dance is what they are meant to do that makes them love the process. Well, I don't even want to say love the process, makes them revel and relish the process and continue doing it. That makes them go through the grunt work and the difficulty and the challenges and all of that. It really is like kind of the moderating force. It's such a healthy mentality, to have that sense of purpose and intention. And that was what really clearly emerged to me across all 33 of them, in addition to, of course, talent and ambition and intellect and creativity. They all are fueled by just this is what I was meant to do. I mean, and several of them said very similar things in their interviews. What got you started dancing and then what kept you? That was one question I asked almost everybody in different forms. And almost all of them answered in a similar way, different words, of course, but they would say, well, I just felt right. It just felt like this is what I needed to do. It's just me. I don't know. I can't really explain why. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I love moving to music and I love the physicality of it and I love the community of it. I love being on stage and I love performing. But the bottom line, the common denominator was, I don't know. It just is me. This is just who I am. I mean, some of the dancers, like I even pulled out some of the quotes here. Corinne Seneca, who is the dancer she's French, and Gene photographed her when she was in Boston Ballet. And she said, looking back on her career later on, she realized that, the ego in her was like seeking more roles and more recognition and a promotion and a rank and a status. But she realized, like, if you're always focused on that, on the feedback, you're not present enough to actually take it. You just have to do it for yourself and not for the recognition. And that is also something that every single one of these dancers said to me in a different way. I love that because it really dispels one of the myths that the outside world has about dancers, which is that you're vain, it's all about your ego, it's all about the applause, it's all about being on stage, you just love being in front of people and being clapped for. And that is so not it. As you know, it's really not it at all. That's not a motivation. And Corinne summed that up really well. So that's something I would like people to know about these dancers as people, that they are just people, and yet the way they have approached life with their dancer mindset toolkit is what enables them to move through life with this real kind of spiritual grace.
What would you say, Gene?
That's too deep for me to... I just wanted people to see the humanity of these people, of these dancers. I just wanted them to get across that these are committed people that just want to bring some joy to the world and to themselves through their dance.
Yeah. There's a lot of like ballet world stereotypes that these stories really debunk. I love that because that's I guess that's one of my missions in life now is to refute the myths, like the myth of dancers kind of being slaves or martyrs to their art, or it's all about sacrifice and pain, or the flip side, the other extreme, that it's just all about pure joy and you just get to your heart is filled with joy when you go to the studio every day and you want nothing else but to put on your pointe shoes and dance and dance and dance and dance. It's all happy, happy, happy. And of course, we know neither extreme is true. Everything exists kind of in the middle ground. And these stories just really show that these dancers have autonomy. They feel self-empowered. So many of them just took their lives in their own hands. And yeah, I mean, there's always going to be like audition processes and you kind of have to go where you get a job. But at the same time, a lot of these dancers like made choices for themselves. They decided, well, no, I want to do this. And so I'm going to go this direction instead of that direction. But again, that sense of self-assuredness and self-purpose and worth that comes from having invested your life into pursuing dance is what gave them that inner strength and gives them that inner strength. And I mean, that's something that's really important for the non-dancing public to think about. That could also help others navigate their own ways through their own lives.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it when you said that the performance and the applause and all of that can't be the only thing keeping you going, because that's so fleeting. It's the tip of the iceberg, right? 90% of your life as a dancer is the rehearsals, is the class, is all the other things you have to put into it that can also be really joyful, but can also be really hard. So having that joy for the work.
Yeah. One of the dancers who really illustrated that well is Marjay. She is a dancer who's in a company in South Carolina, and she's a prodigy. She's still young. I think she's probably in her mid-20s now. And Gene photographed her when she was a teenager. And she struggled really young with burnout because she went to competitions and she won. Like, she did really well and everyone got really excited about her. And strangely, unexpectedly, to someone reading about that, that really did a number for her self-esteem and her confidence, because suddenly she felt like she was expected to dance and perform at an extraordinarily high level for everybody else. And she said she totally lost her own sense of purpose. And so she took a step back and she stopped for a little bit and she did a lot of talking it through with some of her mentors and with her family, and then came back and decided, no, I mean, I'm not doing this to win competitions. You know, she had that realization young, thank goodness, and has reapproached her life and her career. She's very successful. She's a wonderful dancer, of course. And having that realization as a youngster, as a teenager, that's really amazing. And that's really cool. And that's something a lot of people don't figure out till later in life, if ever. But again, it was being in the dance world that first caused her to go through that, but then helped her have that realization and re-tap into her worth and her purpose and her inner motivation, and enables her to thrive.
The other person that talks about that a little bit is Craig Salstein.
Mm-hmm.
Craig basically says, for him, it's about the work. It's about working his body. You know, the performance aspect of it is very small compared to the everyday process that he goes through, which is to him the most important part, is keeping himself active and, you know, attacking the work.
Yeah, it's true. Craig was really interesting story because I think I spoke with him twice. I think we did 2 interviews. And at one point during one of them, I was like, wow, this is getting pretty negative. I mean, he was talking about how, like, you know, he just pushes himself through the slog and the work. And he said it's like Sisyphus, and, you know, you're always pushing uphill the rock and it's pushing you down, you know, to keep pushing it uphill again and again and again. But he's so funny. He's just hilarious. And his way of delivering that sentiment and that concept also just makes you laugh and relate. I mean, any dancer reading that is going to totally relate to it. It's like, oh, we go in the studio every day. And like, no, I mean, 4 days out of 5, you don't want to go take class, right? But you do it. And it's not because you like dread it, you hate it, but you also don't love it. And I think Craig really hit that nail on the head in the way he explained his feelings about it.
Yeah, that really spoke to me for sure. What do you hope that pre-professional dancers or early career dancers, that's really who this podcast is aimed toward, is helping dancers who are trying to pursue their career. What do you hope they're going to take away from these stories?
I hope they come away with the idea that there are a lot of ways to become a dancer. I mean, there are a lot of paths that you can take. It's not clearly defined and you have to find your way, but this might be some help, you know, give you some direction in terms of what choices you can make and what choices people have made to reach their goals. I mean, I almost look at it as a textbook in a way. Yeah, this should be required reading for everyone thinking of professional dance as a career. So, you know, we'll see, to be determined.
I agree. I feel like having access to these stories from all of these dancers, many that I have watched their careers and some that I hadn't heard of yet, but really loved learning about, was very powerful, even for me as a dancer on the other side of my career.
I'd like younger, you know, pre-professional or early career dancers to take away from this that there is no way to go wrong if you really just follow your heart. You really cannot try to map your own route based on somebody else's. You just cannot, because it's definitely going to make you disappointed, definitely make you disappointed. But you just have to listen to your heart and see the doors that are opening for you and then go towards them. I just really feel like a lot of these dancers did at some point make a really unorthodox choice or ended up going in an unexpected direction to great personal satisfaction. And the unexpected happens and you can't fight it too hard. And there are 2 examples I want to give from the book. Number 1 was Viola Hajati. She was a ballet dancer in Europe and she ended up in the Moulin Rouge as a can-can performer in the cabaret. You know, she'd been a successful ballet dancer, but that door opened for her and she didn't think it was for her at first. She's like, I'm a ballet dancer, it's not what I do. But she tried it. And she discovered that she loved it and was excellent at it. And she had this stellar career in the Moulin Rouge. when I asked her about like, how did it feel to go that completely different way? She said, you know what? I wouldn't make any changes now. If you listen to your heart, you will never go wrong. You just have to listen to your soul and your heart. And I thought that was just amazing. Then the other person I wanted to point out as an example of this, our anonymous dancer, who we call Marie in the book. I'm not going to give away her story or why she's anonymous because I want everyone to go and read it for themselves. But I spoke with her at length a few times to get her whole story. And at the end, in conclusion, she said, you know what? I don't regret anything. But what I do wish is that I had earlier on been able to hold my dream lightly in the palm of my hand instead of in a like ironclad fist, instead of clenching it so tightly that I almost killed it. I wish I'd been able to just hold that dance dream very lightly and preciously. And that was such a beautiful image that made me do a lot of thinking myself, man. I think dancers can learn a lot and it'll provoke a lot of thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Gavin and Gene. This was so amazing to hear more about the makings of this book. Can you share with our listeners where they can get a copy?
Yes, lots and lots of places you can get a copy. Any bookseller, any online book retailer will have it. If you go to your local bookstore and ask for it, if they don't have it, that would be great too. You can order it direct from our publisher, the University Press of Florida. You can get it on Amazon, of course. You can follow Gene's and my social media accounts for updates on things. But yeah, it's widely available.
Perfect. I will link all of that information in the show notes for anyone listening who wants to grab a copy. I highly recommend it. And this book is our Brainy Ballerina Book Club pick for March and April. So if you haven't joined the book club yet, I will also link that in the show notes. It's free to join, and it's just a fun way to join a community of book lovers who also love ballet. So we'd love to have you there. Thank you so much to both of you for taking the time today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Caitlin. It's been really fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Brainy Ballerina Podcast. If you found this episode insightful, entertaining, or maybe a bit of both, I would so appreciate you taking a moment to leave a rating and hit subscribe. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll join our community of dancers passionate about building a smart and sustainable career in the dance industry. Plus, your ratings help others discover the show too. I'll be back with a new episode next week. In the meantime, be sure to follow along on Instagram at The Brainy Ballerina for your daily dose of dance career guidance.